active learning, contextual learning, collaborative learning, self-directed learning. Those are 4 main characteristics of PBL. It may be obvious that the image of a teacher who is lecturing, who is transmitting knowledge, is not compatible with this view on learning. Then what is the role of the tutor, of the teacher in PBL? Or is the teacher in PBL redundant? Educational research studying key factors that contribute to effective learning shows that besides learner-related variables like intelligence and motivation, the only variable that really makes a difference is the teacher. And also in problem-based learning settings, the role of the teacher is crucial. In order to stress the difference with traditional education, we call a teacher in PBL a tutor. In problem-based learning settings, groups of students are guided by the tutor. Definitely, you will agree that the role of the tutor is a challenging one. It is so much more than telling an interesting and structured story. I would like to emphasize 5 important characteristics of good tutoring: working student-centered, managing group dynamics, using questions effectively, managing time and process, and creating a safe and positive learning environment. I will now elaborate on those 5 characteristics. During a tutorial, a tutor will face a lot of challenging situations. Challenging because he might be tempted to react in a way that is not supporting PBL. And once students are used to such an approach, this will have an effect on their learning process. For each of the 5 characteristics, I will mention such a challenging situation. Working student-centered, the first characteristic. The opposite of tutor-centered. This student-centered approach emphasizes that learning is an active process. Through a scaffolding process offered by the tutor and by their peers, students in a PBL setting construct and reconstruct their knowledge. Learning is a process of creating meaning and building personal interpretations. This student-centered approach also underlines that learning is self-directing. Students who are self-directing their learning, they become more self-confident, goal-oriented, self-disciplined, and independent. A tutor needs skills to support students and to allow them enough freedom to direct their own learning process. During the pre-discussion, the tutor will work from the student's own level, keeping the desired level of understanding the subject matter in mind. A challenging situation that happens a lot in tutorials is when students complain that they have no prior knowledge about the subject matter. And therefore, they prefer to skip the pre-discussion and read the materials first. Discussing the materials afterwards seems more easy for students. However, for an effective PBL process, the pre-discussion is essential. A goal of the pre-discussion is to raise interest and also to activate prior knowledge. Activating prior knowledge is about creating a stepping stone for further learning. And that is a crucial step for student-centered learning. A tutor who is working student-centered is like a coach of a sports team. A coach will try to let his team collaborate well. A coach is on the sideline, but always aware of every move the team makes. He's observing and giving feedback to the whole team or to the individual player. But the athletes have to do all the hard work. They have to do the exercising, the training. But they know that the coach will always be there to support them. Speaking about working student-centered brings us to the second characteristic, managing group dynamics. PBL implies collaborative learning. Making a tutorial group run smoothly requires understanding group dynamics and also planning for those dynamics. To stimulate students and to guide the learning process of students in a tutorial, The tutor can intervene. It may be quite difficult for a tutor to decide when to intervene. Intervening too soon could kill group dynamics, and waiting too long to intervene could be frustrating for students. Decisions hereupon are based on different tutor skills. Skills with respect to group process, group dynamics, providing feedback, scaffolding. A PBL tutor should always recognize that the group process is the responsibility of the entire group. It is not only the responsibility of the tutor. A challenging situation is when students have prepared well, they are reporting what they have found, they have a lot of information to share, but they are not reacting on each other. They are not asking questions to each other. Or when they are asking questions to the tutor instead of solving the problem together. Students are not always used to collaborative learning. They are used to asking their questions to the teacher, or even more, to answering the questions from the teacher. A tutor in PBL has to make clear that he breaks with this tradition. The first tutorial is the ideal moment to start planning for those group dynamics. It will set the tone for the remainder of the sessions. During this first tutorial, it is up to the tutor and the students to set the norms. The tutor can first invite students to give suggestions based on what have been working well for them in other sessions, in other tutorials. It's always nice to find out what students expect from their fellow students from the group and what they expect from you as a tutor. And then it's up to the tutor to explain how he wants to work and why. Those group norms will often concern active participation, being prepared, being on time, interrupting. Once those group norms are set, they can always be revisited if tutorials are not running smoothly. Using questions effectively, the third characteristic. A tutor has to be an active listener. He constantly has to diagnose the learning process of the group and the learning process of the individual student, in order to decide where he can help the student. When using questions effectively, the tutor will help students. With the right question, on the right moment, the tutor will challenge students and will stimulate the learning process of students. Asking good questions exactly on time might be the most important skill for a tutor. A challenging situation is when a tutor asks a question to the group and no one answers the questions. The tutor rephrases the question, but still there is no answer from the group. Tutors might be tempted to answer the question themselves because of time misuse, or because they feel it is their responsibility, or because they want students to go home with the right information. However, this is not how PBL works. The learning process is a shared responsibility. An important skill of a tutor is to quickly find the reason why students do not react. Is it because the question is unclear? Is it because they are not prepared? Or is it because they don't feel comfortable to speak up? Different reasons demand different approaches. A golden rule to avoid such a troublesome moment is again the first tutorial, setting the rules. When a question is asked, an answer is expected. And next to that, silence from the side of the tutor can be very powerful. Keeping this second and third characteristic in mind, managing group dynamics and using questions effectively, I would like to present another metaphor. Being a tutor in a PBL setting is like playing on a pinball machine. You throw up the ball, and if the ball immediately returns to you, you do not gain any credits. However, if the ball goes up and keeps going around and hits many rings and bells, you gain a lot of credits. A game with only questions from the tutor and answers from the students does not make for group dynamics, and therefore will not give you any PBL credits. A fourth characteristic is managing time and process. This is a shared responsibility of the student discussion leader and the tutor. A good tutor in PBL always ensures that students are on track. A good tutor makes sure that students are productive in their work. A good tutor is always challenging students and motivating them in their learning process. A good tutor will always make sure that every student is involved. A good tutor is always able to adjust the level required by each tutorial group. And all of this needs to be done in a limited amount of time. Because contact hours in PBL are limited, it might be a pitfall for course developers to put too much content in one task. And as a result of that, there is a challenging situation for the tutor. It might be tempting to use more time for the post-discussion because there is so much to discuss about this task, and I can understand this because the tutor will worry about students going home with the right information and understanding the materials really well. However, as already emphasized before, the pre-discussion in PBL is essential. During the pre-discussion, students uncover gaps in their knowledge. They learn to come up with relevant questions. Pre-discussion will not only help students to develop important research skills, but will also help students during the self-study phase and will make post-discussion run more smoothly. A safe learning environment is a condition for effective learning. In PBL, where collaborative learning is so important, this gains importance. Therefore, the fifth characteristic is creating a positive learning environment. An important skill for a tutor is to motivate students, to empower students in their knowledge acquisition, to give positive feedback, to stimulate students and to make them feel comfortable in the group. An important skill for a tutor is also to react adequately to the different personalities that are part of the tutorial group. A challenging situation for a tutor is a student who is silent all the time. All students have their own personality, however, this student might be a problem for the tutorial group. Important is that the tutor notices this behavior and tries to find out what the reason is. Is the student shy, or is he not comfortable to speak up? Does he need more time and space? Is he intimidated, or is it performance anxiety? There could be so many reasons why a student is silent, and it is up to the tutor to assess this and to find out these reasons. Different reasons ask for different approaches. For example, if somebody is shy, it is difficult to address the student directly. Therefore, it is challenging for a tutor to react on a student who is not unwilling to respond, but who is, for some reason, not participating. With this fourth and fifth characteristic in mind, managing time and process and creating a positive learning environment, I would like to compare the role of the tutor with a florist, a gardener. The gardener needs to make estimations about how much warmth, shade, sun each plant needs to flourish. Keeping those 5 important characteristics of tutors in PBL in mind, working student-centered, managing group dynamics, using questions effectively, managing time and process, and creating a positive learning environment, we have to conclude that a PBL tutor needs many skills and assumes several roles. Problem-based learning is much more than giving some well-designed problems to students and then waiting and seeing what they will do with them. Tutors have a key role. To finish with one more metaphor, a PBL tutor is a captain of a sailing ship or an explorer. The success of the sailing trip depends on various circumstances: the wind, the weather, the skills, the knowledge and the beliefs of the crew, the skills, knowledge and beliefs of the captain. If the captain only lets sail the ship with the wind, it may not come to the desired destination, or maybe it keeps going endlessly. However, when the captain and the crew are listening to each other and carefully consulting each other, they might enjoy a lovely journey, and maybe they will discover an entirely new continent. Are you ready to take this challenging role? Are you ready to explore?